like the worst place to be between drinks and you. But I wanted to just give you guys a couple of observations that I thought might be helpful. I won't be long, I promise. In May of 2001, before September 11th, I was invited to Washington, D.C. by then the head of the U.S. Senate for the Democrats, a senator by the name of Tom Daschle, to give a presentation to all the 52 senators from the Democratic Party about the potential of the internet to help them win elections and to make democracy stronger. And I was brought into the Capitol, into this beautiful room with all the senators sitting at a lunch, and I made this PowerPoint presentation and showing the potential of sharing information about donors, making it easier to how the internet could help them connect with voters. And when I was all finished, Senator Dianne Feinstein, senator from California, Silicon Valley, raises her hand and says, Senator Daschle, I don't believe the Senate should be on the internet. Until we get rid of pornography and advertising, the Senate should have nothing to do with the internet whatsoever. Now, just to give you a sense of how far we've come, just this past week, Senator Feinstein attacked the CIA for spying on the Senate committee overseeing them using the internet. So everyone has their own type of pornography. She discovered that the CIA is building their own dossier about them. But that's just to give you a sense of how far we've come, or maybe how far we have to go. The journey of building Personal Democracy Forum got started when I met Mika Sifry just after the Howard Dean campaign, where we were observing how blogs were creating community long before we had Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, social media, mobile devices that we carry today, smartphones, and where we really thought at the time that technology really could make democracy stronger. And so we embarked on a journey to make a community, to build a community, to bring Republicans and Democrats and people from diverse backgrounds and different organizations, whether they be philanthropists or whether they be activists or whether they be technologists or government officials or politicians or lobbyists, bring them together and have a conversation about whether or not the internet could make for a stronger democracy. And we were extremely optimistic. And here we are, almost 12 years later, and we are still hopeful. And I would love to be able to get to the place where Julia had mentioned earlier, this utopia, which we share with her deeply. For those of you who don't know, Mika and I were deeply involved in the beginning, setting up the Sunlight Foundation, and it's amazing to see its work emulated and spread through your work and through the work of hundreds, if not thousands of others around the world, which definitely gives us hope. But I think we should be careful, and we should be careful to be aware of the real, true, the realities of where we stand today. Mika tomorrow will talk a little bit about his book called The Big Disconnect, where he talks about whether the internet has transformed that the internet has not yet transformed politics, or that the internet has not transformed politics yet. And he'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow. What I'd like to point out to you is something that I've been thinking about a lot in relation to this entire movement, even with all the positive things that we've got going on. So think about 1994 as ground zero for the birth of the internet. I'm calling 1994 that the ground zero because that's basically when the Mosaic browser became popularized and we started surfing the web. Now, I ask you to think very, very hard about this next question. Name an organization, a corporation, an institution founded before 1994 that today wants to see the internet open, as inexpensive as possible, in the hands of as many people as possible, and is doing everything they can to try to make that a reality. There are a few outliers. EFF, maybe the ACLU. There are some, but really think about it. They all have websites now. They all have Twitter accounts. They all use social media. They're building huge databases to track us and advertise to us, particularly the corporations. But what's really happening is you have, particularly post the Snowden revelations, a real attempt to put the genie back in the bottle by all those forces. But it's more complicated than that, because let's call all of those organizations, people, governments, BI, before internet. And everyone from 1994 to today, AI, after internet. Now, many organizations founded after internet started thinking, let's join this movement for the open web. And like Google as a perfect example, they made a mission. Make all the world's information available to everybody and do no evil. Now, the further and further away you get from 1994, the harder it becomes for organizations to actually do no evil. Google may not want to do evil, but Google can no longer do no evil because it has to twist itself into a pretzel for two reasons. One, to keep the government regulators at bay because they've gotten smarter and are trying to control or regulate Google in many ways, some good, some not so good. And the market itself, the desire for money, is also making Google, to satisfy Wall Street, turn into a pretzel. And it's even further complicated by companies that were born in the AI period who are only existing for the purposes of making money. And they couldn't care less about whether our data is safe. They want to mine it for profit. And they are not thinking about these principles the way we are. And we should be asking ourselves very, very hard questions about organizations like Internet.org, started by Facebook, which is offering smartphones to people in poor countries, but only for free if they are on Facebook. And if we allow projects like this and the media associated with them to control people's impressions about what the open web is, we are going to be losing this battle. Now back to trying to be a little bit more optimistic. This community is growing, but we have to do a better job of connecting with our peers, sharing our stories, measuring our results, challenging our assumptions and our projects, failing fast, starting lean, and most importantly, teaching our children how to follow us. Ask yourselves this question. How many of you in this room read the terms of service all the way through on the last website or app that you downloaded? Raise your hands. The last one. The one you just, not if you've ever done it, whether you did it on the last one. We have a flaw in our theory. We can talk all we want about transparency and demand more from government and point out examples of where government is doing a better job. I'm telling you, they want to put the genie back in the bottle. They may be just fooling us with a few of these projects. And we may be hopeful that some companies will come and not talk about corporate social responsibility, but actually engage in not building more apps, but maybe building apps that are more civic. For example, Airbnb could introduce its neighbors to each other as opposed to just taking money from them for facilitating a transaction. But what's not included in this conversation and why what Snowden has done is so important, it's making us ask ourselves and hopefully asking the public, the internet public, to engage itself in a conversation of what transparency, what open data, what democracy means in the 21st century, so that we might be able, for those who are born in this century and are going to live into the 22nd century, that they will not look back at the 21st century the way we look at the 20th century as failing to realize the goals of a free and open society. So with that, let's go have a drink. Thank you very much.